Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, and also I must thank being here. Thank you for Plasticity or Plasticity. Yeah. First of all, I would like to show a few slides. Okay, I think a lot of people are very familiar with exit dust, and we see why I put these things over here with these few slides. So this picture showing recyclers moving away from China. The second one shows where they moved to. So these are mostly Southeast Asian countries. So the third one is from Southeast Asian country to Eastern Europe and also Turkey, as well as other places. In fact, I did not show over here, to countries there with less control on the plastic import. So the third one is, we will see later on, because of the Basel Convention amendments, a lot of recyclers now go to OECD countries. So now we look at why all these changes happened in the last few years. To start with, we have fundamental changes in our industry. I would say, as mentioned earlier, speaker talking about, in fact, change in policy more rapid or more faster than what we can cope with. And there are a lot of changes that we never, ever imagined. I think this is also because of the public awareness of environmental pollution. And in those days, especially in China during the end of 70s and 80s, government, industry, and general public, they didn't realize about how, or during the process of recycling, there's always emission of air pollution to the soil and also to water. We changed from plastic recycling industry being very, very lax policy. Later on we will see, to very, very strict control. That's why we see those slides earlier, that a lot of recyclers had to move from one place to other place. And also, plastic is actually very, very durable. It makes our life very convenient. At the same time, plastic is also terrible because it takes years or decades or even centuries to be biodegraded. First piece of plastic was invented 1862. And those days, it wasn't thermoplastic, it was Bakelite. It's a plastic that we use for shotcake. And I deeply believe that this piece of plastic is still with us today. It's not being biodegraded. So we also look at, nowadays, lots of people talking about reduce, recycling, and reuse. This is it's a result of plastic is not easy to be biodegraded, and plastic also pollute our environment. Talk about our industry. Because of this pollution, we have a lot of controls from the government to start with. We have initiative during the last 10 years from China, green fence, and then afterward we have national shore. People move to Southeast Asian country, but we also have different kind of control or restriction by these countries. And often in China, so as in other Southeast Asian countries, they always treated their own waste as like resources. When we talk about imported scrap, often they call this is like foreign garbage. There's a Putonghua, a Chinese saying, this is a foreign garbage, yang lazi. I don't know how many people know about this phrase. And also, lots of countries nowadays, they rather focus the resources or the recycling capacity on the domestic waste rather than the imported one. So that's why we have recyclers move from one place to other place. Let me see if I... Just now I mentioned about National Shore. This is an initiative to stop importation of very, very contaminated scrap plastic that they believe will contaminate environment. And as I said before, lots of countries, they rather concentrate their resources on domestic waste. And at the same time, this is the first time that exporting country really feel they have to recycle their own waste. And I call this is a wake-up call. Yeah, and this wake-up call, for long term, you will help exporting country to develop their own recycling system. Later on, we will see why we have the Basel Convention amendment. I think these two are very, very popular and under spotlight because nowadays we see this kind of slides or pictures posted in our media, television, everywhere. This is a result of waste plastic being polluted, being as a waste going to the ocean and affect our life and also affect our ecosystem. So I call this also is a shaking up of our industry because of recyclers move from Southeast Asian country to different country. And before they move, when they move from China to very popular spot like Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, they have to comply with all the local regulation. And in the end, it's very difficult for recycler in this country with lack of knowledge about regulation, and also recycler always want to use the most efficient way to make money. And the efficient way, it doesn't mean that it's the most environmental friendly way. So now this is a picture showing that in those days, 2-3 years ago, recyclers in China, there's the few options they have. Either they recycle the domestic waste, or they have to move out of China to country in Southeast Asian region. I also mentioned about this Basel Convention amendment. Later on, we will discuss more about this. Why I have this exodus because of recycler move from one place to others as a result of policy changes. And then I really think that the last thing that will happen in the next couple of years' time is recycler will have to move to OECD country or to exporting country. So now we look at this immense effect. With all these changes, what this will impact our industry and our recycling, our life or our environmental protection. I don't know whether you notice, especially people in the recycling industry, in the last few years, there's been lots of bankruptcy or people out of business because of the changes. Especially those Chinese people or Chinese recyclers based in China, when they move to this Southeast Asian country, often, first of all, they don't have a license, and also they don't understand the rules and regulation governing the importation and also the running of the operation. And also there's also huge competition, especially I first estimate there will be only a very like 20-30% of the recycler will move out of China and set up their factory in Southeast Asian country. In the end, I found out the number of factory actually setting up in Southeast Asia region far more than what I expect, and also far more than what those days there were only 1,700 imported scrap plastic recycler. The reason for this because I think those people, they might not find other industry that they can go into. And instead, when they move out from China to all these countries, they increase their capacity. So in the end, there's a huge competition and lots of people being weed out in our industry. And secondly, because of the control on the export and also control on the import, there's lots of material they were not able to import due to low recovery rate, and also cost-wise, they might have to spend more money on the process of recycling or process of cleaning, washing the material, plus the fact that last couple of years the market in recycled pellet is not as good as what they expect. So these are the pictures showing that the recycling industry has been doing very, very bad, and also market sentiment was also no good. A lot of people shut down their operation. So these kind of destructive changes bring along lots of problems, lots of challenges. And we will see also Basel Convention amendment, whether this will be a really, really big impact to our industry, and we have to see what is good about Basel Convention amendment. And one of the problems we have, we just heard about the recycling rate of plastic scrap. Now it's barely 9% with the Basel Convention amendment, which restrict transparently movement of scrap. So that will impact further recycling rate. Whether this is going to be more than 9% or less than 9% is yet to be seen. So this is another picture showing lots of problems with our industry and a headache. And as I mentioned, whether this is going to be a yes or no, coal, pole, or corn, we have to discuss later on. And with carbon emission, ocean pollution, these also are the topics that we will concentrate today. So here are the numbers. Unfortunately, I'm not able to specify, but I think what we need to look at is the first two columns, China and Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is a gateway for importation of scrap into China. So maybe we don't look at really this 2.88 million tons of scrap imported 2016. What we need to look at is the grand total 15.48 million tons of scrap imported 2016, in China 7.35 million. But I remember in 2015 and 2014, the number was close to 10 million. So in the end, with this table from the far right bottom, so we see totally 2018, barely like less than 7 million tons of scrap imported by or exported to country with the recycling capacity. So this is also one of the problems that we need to look at. In the end, what happened will be, with this analysis, we will see only maybe more than or close to 40% of the material being exported to a recycling countries. So now we look at exporting. We also see 2016 and 2018 from country like state, the percentage that compare with these 2 years we actually have 30-40% down, and also the grand total, instead of 11.74 million tons exported, we only have 7.23. Yeah. So we see there's a shortfall, or there's a difference of quite a big number, a few millions. Where those scrap going to, we also had to find out and discuss later on. So industry take a new shape. I think because of these changes, there are a few things that we will notice. And apart from the plastic, nowadays, now they are enemy for this country, imported one, I must say, because they always call the imported one is foreign garbage. In some countries like Philippines, Malaysia, in fact, last few days we also heard about a lot of containers being sent back or repatriated to exporting country. And now it's getting more and more difficult to ship scrap plastics to Southeast Asian country, especially with the Basel Convention Amendment give reference what you can import, what you can export. And lots of countries, including Japan, England, or some of the European countries, also use this reference to stop or to restrict export of recycled material. What I really believe and also will happen, and I will see lots of recyclers in the end will have to shift their operation from Southeast Asian country to country that with more lax control on the import and also on the environmental protection. And we also saw a lot of recyclers move to African countries, to Caribbean countries, to Mexico, and also Latin America. And one of the things that will really happen is, I use this phrase since many years, is recycling as source. As scrap plastic are not really welcomed by most of the country, what will happen in the end, every country had to take care of their own waste, especially agricultural scrap plastic. At this moment, because the agricultural scrap plastic only with recycling rate probably as low as like 30%, often these are not worth exporting anyway. In the state, in Florida especially, the farmers are allowed to burn their scrap plastic. I don't know about Europe. So these are the mobile machine doing all the shredding in Florida. And I was actually with this recycler last month in Florida. And this also could be an argument that because of these changes, right, in our industry, there are more traders than processors. And because we are not able to export or import, what will happen, I'm talking about scrap, so what will happen is this trader might have to concentrate on regrind or recycle pellets. Or later on, we also will see at this moment in Europe, in fact, because a lot of people, they think this is an opportunity, so they move their operation over here, or upstream supplier, they start their operation in recycling of pellet. And we started to see there's a huge demand for easy processing material. With today's price of film scrap, if you really calculate it, there's no profit. People doing it, I would say to do it only because they already invest. And if they don't do it, they might lose $15, for example. If they do it, they lose maybe 10. And everybody take the attitude of wait and see. Later on, I will be able to, because of time constraint, otherwise I will be able to give some numbers, how much money you pay for the film scrap and how much is the processing cost. And in the end, at this moment especially, there's an oversupply, overcapacity of recycled material. But this kind of recycled material are the one PE film or PET. And we know later on we will look at brand owner, they committed themselves to using a lot of recycled content. But these recycled content are often different than the overcapacity one, so they're not matching. Just now, I also like to mention in China, there are lots of recyclers. During the last couple of years, they already developed their downstream manufacturing factory. One of the example of those are film blowing or EPS manufacturer. They also make a photo frame and market to exporting country. And I have a few examples of these people, they already moved to countries like States or Europe and to recycle them. So those people, they are competitive enough because they have the vertical integration either upstream or downstream. And talk about upstream, we have a few examples of those companies like Veolia, Stena. I met them last couple of weeks in Singapore, and they already committed themselves processing from their material, from some of their material into recycled pellets. And the number and the tonnage they mentioned about is really, really big. So we'll see what happens. So we also talk about recycled content. If we put together all the brand owners, they committed themselves using, for example, I mean, the most popular phase, they always say they use 20 to 25% in the next 2 years, and then 50% 2025, and 100% or zero emission to 2030. And I don't know whether this kind of like commitment, is there any like regulation or this kind of commitment, you just only make a pledge simply to interest the general public or to impress themselves. That we also have to discuss later on. I think Tris also have something to share with everybody here, what this commitment means. But then if this commitment come to reality, come to truth, we don't have enough material for all to fulfill all this commitment. But just now earlier I said, on one hand we have an overcapacity, on the other hand we have a shortage. Why? And where is the solution? So supply demand is not balanced, not because of the quantity, it's because of the matching. Recycled content, something we talk about efficiency, we talk about lack of supply material, and now we talk about geographically. Before, some of the brand owner, they have the material from Southeast Asian countries. Today, because of the restriction on the movement of goods to all these countries, brand owner might have to reposition themselves where they should get the material and what they should get. Now we come to the last of my presentation, move forward. I think what we need to look at today is, there's a lot of media. I think media is something that monitored and also governing our industry. We see our whole industry is under spotlight every day with any of this CNN, Sky News, BBC, all this. There's no single day that they don't post like pollution from the plastic recycling or what we need to do to care about environment and also environmental protection. So what is coming out, we talk about like single plastic. And I really believe that reduce is the most effective way. And also, I also like to say, if one cannot recycle them, just don't use it or don't produce them. And we also talk about circular economy, close the loop, extended producer responsibility. I started this business since 1984. In those days, we never heard about this word like sustainability, recycling. I started this business because it was rather easy to start because we don't need much money to start. And also, often there are lots of people, lots of businessmen, they did not know the way how to get scrap from Western Europe or from the States. Fortunately, I studied in England. I went over there in 1976. I was one of the very few people that can speak the language, international language, and also be able. And also, I understand plastic recycling because my family has been as a collector since the 60s. I always had to help with the sorting, so I know plastic pretty well compared with most of the people. And today, when we do recycling, we talk about sustainability. We also often only talk about how to do the recycling. But the most important thing is you always need money to do it. So it's pricing. And in actual fact, okay, what we need is really the financial factor, the numbers. Without these numbers, we're not able to move on. And this is the picture taken for me last month when I was in Los Angeles. This is the behavior things. I think going back to 60, 70 years ago, there wasn't plastic until the 60s. I don't know whether any one of you had watched a movie from Dustin Hoffman, The Graduate. I think the most famous phrase is "the plastic." There was the time that plastic started to be really popular. And today, when we look at this, the consumption of plastic, especially in some of the developed countries like America, over here, we see lots of plastic over there, and I'm 100% sure this plastic will not be recycled, like the small cup, for the sauce, and also the lid. These are made out of plastic. I don't really think that this plastic will be sorted and go to the recycling industry. So move forward with the roadmap for next many years. I still think that our recycling rate, whether it is going to go up or move down, is also depending on a lot of factors. This policy and also financial support and the attitude, behavior of consumer and also industry. So now we also have this Basel Convention. I think today we will have a lot of discussion about what we can import, what we cannot import, what's the essence of this transboundary movement restrictions. So these also are the very famous slides that everybody has seen. Okay, yeah, this come to the final, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for the listening.